Hey y'all, how we doing? Shout out to Bear Nation for tuning in for another episode of the Bear Necessities of Entrepreneurship, a podcast for the entrepreneur-minded, created by entrepreneurs, discussing the real stories that give you the tools to overcome challenges and stay true to your real self. As always, I want to give a shout out to our partners over at Fin. Fin is a social good platform that creates employee engagement and builds culture. We've teamed up with Fin to give back to the communities that we serve. For every episode, we will be donating $10 to the cause of choosing by our guest in the Fin platform. Enjoy today's episode. Bear Nation, what is up? We are back again for another episode of the Bear Necessities of Entrepreneurship podcast. And for all you audio listeners, I'm sorry, you're going to have to go check out the YouTube page at some point because our guest today is Papa Bear, and he is wearing his bear suit. And Matt Barnett, who is our guest today, is a British designer by trade. But when Matt started Bojoro, it's his second company, founded out of Sydney, Australia. And what started as a sales hack for an agency he was running kind of went from a hack to a side hustle to a global business in just 18 months. And now Bojoro has teams across 5 different continents. So with that, Papa Bear, Matt, welcome to the show. Say hello to Bear Nation for me.
Hey, Rob. Great to be here. Hi, everyone.
Well, we're excited, and I love getting to talk pre-show with you, and I love that you're rocking, the bear suit. I need to get a bear suit. I've got the bear logo. So the Bear Necessities, like what better podcast for Matt to be on talking entrepreneurship than the Bear Necessities, right? And so, I love getting to hear a little bit of your story, but tell me, how does a British designer by trade end up founding 2 companies? Walk me through a little bit of where your journey kind of starts, and then we'll dig into that and we'll get into where you are today.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I guess it goes right the way back. I think I've always been, I would have always ended up doing a business. I think I grew up in quite an entrepreneurship family. My father started something quite different. He started a crossbow and archery company, which is now run by my brother in the States. Biggest archery company in the world. So I saw, it's very different to software, completely. But,
well, being a Midwest boy, I know all about it, but I'm sure that some of my listeners don't know what kind of world that is, but growing up in the Midwest as a hunting family, I get it.
Yeah. So it's called Barnett International. It's pretty big, but he started from nothing. And so I saw that story and saw, more importantly, I think the opportunities that it arose. I saw the stresses as well, of course, he was in the States 2 weeks, back into the UK for 2 weeks, back and forth, for long of childhood. But there's still a great job as a father. So I think you have that. And then I think there's also, I do think there's a bit of maybe a genetic thing as well. I think you get the nurture. I think there is a nature thing as well. I've always been very creative. On that side, I've always been building stuff since a kid. So, I found myself funneled into design or industrial design on the product side, always with the intention to go and start something. So all the way through university, I was coming up with products, trying to launch things, went out, did, a year and a half in consultancy just to get my skills up to that level, and then started an agency in the UK doing design consultancy. Ran that for a couple of years and then decided, so I surfed a lot, and surfing off the coast of Scotland in the winter with sideways snow, when you're out there and your whole face goes numb because you can't feel it because it's so cold. I think that there was one day and I was sitting on the beach in a hailstorm next to a mate, hiding under our boards because the hail was so strong. I looked at him and I just said, fuck this. I got a plane to Australia, moved here and didn't look back, and then kind of came here, fell into business once again.
I love that. I mean, that was my next question was, how did you growing up in the UK and what forced you to, or what wanted to make you come to Australia to live? And you just answered the cold and surfing. So
it wasn't a business thing. Like you come in now and I'm like, I had all these dreams. I was like, I will surf every day for the rest of my life. I now have business and children, and that is not a thing that happens anymore.
So you say that you're a designer by trade, and then, throughout your career, you kind of started your career, got into consulting, doing some stuff, and then you decided to go back for an MBA. When you went into design, what was your thought process behind getting that as a degree? And then, how did that kind of help realization that you'd always known from an early age you wanted to be an entrepreneur or do your own thing, having a family business? Where did you start getting that mindset of, I'm tired of fucking working for somebody else. Like, I want to start my own thing. Like, what was there an experience or a switch or a gradual thing that happened for you that made that kind of start happening?
Yeah. So, we actually looked to launch a company straight out of uni. So, and then the guy that I co-founded with decided he wanted to go take a high profile job instead. Yeah. Which obviously when you're younger, that happens. Yeah. So I wasn't comfortable going on without him. In hindsight, I probably would do. So I took a year and a half in consultancy. It wasn't a long time, and I kind of went in like a whirlwind and just did everything I could.
Yeah.
But the whole time I was there, I was thinking how to start a business. So I don't think it was ever, again, the job was the fallback, but the business was always the intention. Mm-hmm. So again, it wasn't like I magically decided, one day our business is great. Yeah, like it was always something I was trying to do. Design. I had this weird mind where you have, I'm a creative on one side and then an engineer scientist on the other side. Mm-hmm. So alongside doing consultancy, I worked as a professional artist in London for many years. I still work as a professional artist on the side. It's my absolute passion. But that's like the high end of creativity where you don't have to sell shit. So you do whatever you want. Like I did a lot of body works. I did a lot of like I've worked with people that I love. Like you need to keep that as your creative outlet. But then I love the commercial side, and that's the engineering head of how do you fit things together, how do you solve problems. And so product design, rather than graphic design, you have this weird bunch of people who are like left brain, right brain, like in equal amounts. I love them, but they're a bit odd. And so I think it doesn't spit out a lot of entrepreneurs. I think that's a different skill or different mindset, again, laid on top. I think that applies to all industries. So you've got entrepreneurs who are accountants or who are designers. Like just because you're like creatives, to be honest, I would say are actually probably less good at entrepreneurship, because I think creatives generally, depending how creative they are, can struggle with I think confidence around their work. Like you always hear about starving artists, and it's because they don't have the commercial nous to go out and sell. Whereas you look at like good artists like Damien Hirst and that group, at the end of the day, they are businessmen or businesswomen, like 100%. Like they run it as a business. They understand, that they're selling a high premium commodity. They build the brand. They do the hustle. But most creatives do not fit into that mindset. Yeah. So again, like I think entrepreneurship is independent of how your brain works. It's just another. Yeah. You're just a sucker for punishment. I know. There's another whole piece to it.
That is true. Having, owning two of my business myself, I realize, I think it's funny you talk about the creative and make that parallel, because, I always laugh that there are tons of amazing undiscovered talent and artists out there. And, the difference comes into, can you sell yourself? Can you market yourself? Can you put yourself out there? One of my favorite stories is Banksy, right? Like the way that he goes about his process and guerrilla style of marketing is so genius and captures attention and disrupts patterns that allows him to be such a big name. And when you start thinking about entrepreneurship, right? Entrepreneurial minded versus being an entrepreneur are two very different things. And you just kind of touched on that. And a lot of people want to be entrepreneurs, and they don't realize that when you get into entrepreneurship, you have to do everything yourself, sell, accounting, finance, all this shit. And it is just punishment to the extreme. So, I love this idea, like the designer, the kind of two sides. So you've got your passion being art, and then you've got the engineering brain, which is your product, which we'll get into, which is like your business side of the world. When you do your art, or is there anything through your art that allows you to contemplate the way that you run business? Or is it a full, like, I need a mental getaway, this is my escape, and this is like me and my full creative element, and it's just only me and art? Or does the art like somehow lead you to a higher place of like your business acumen?
No, so I think what it is, and this is me personally. This might be the same for other creatives, yeah. But I think one of the keys to success in business, and there's many, but one of the keys to be successful in my mind is looking at problems in a different way. Mm-hmm. And that is absolutely the creative side of your brain, yeah? And again, you can be an accountant, but you're a creative accountant, yeah? Like if you ask me, a lot of the best founders are creative, in some capacity. They might not think they are, but you look at how they solve problems and I'm like, no. You have that side of your brain, it just hasn't been trained the right way. So for me, the art side is, it's just like cutting loose on creativity where there's not necessarily a real world problem or business to fix. Now, the challenge you'll find, and that I find, is I actually struggle to maintain that creative brain while maintaining a business.
Yeah.
And you go through these ebbs and flows with the company, so when we go through fundraising, as a founder now, as CEO, I would pull into that massively, and it's not that creative a process, yeah? It's very much a sales-driven process.
Yeah.
And so you'll see months when I don't get that and it's very full-time, it's very full-on. And then when we stop, I bounce straight back into product because I'm like, I need to get this again. Now, again, if you can train that creative brain and keep training it and keep using it, and there's a stat, I think it's something like, 90% of people have lost their creativity by the time they're 12 years old. Mm. And I think that is diminishing because I think schools are understanding now with kids that creativity is important. Yeah. But it's a weird thing where you actually have to work at it to keep it sharp.
Yeah.
Like anything else. Yeah. So just because you're a creative kid or because your kids are creative, as they grow up, if they're pushed down into other routes, that will diminish. And so I find the struggle now running a business because you get sucked into a lot of the other work because you have to, because that's your job. Having that creative outset is a struggle. And the downside is then that you come back with your solutions to problems are maybe not as good as they could be. Yeah. And ultimately the best solutions, will drive business ahead.
So Matt, one of the things that I love that you brought out there about this creativity and the creative brains thing is that with Gen Z being so hyper-connected and the amount of opportunities they have to be creative, i.e. IG Reels, TikTok, the way that social has and tools have been input in lives, it has allowed for creativity to expand, right? We have so many content creators now versus the old school way of being you go deep, single niche, there's one rule to rule them on, you kind of go down, which is why I think we stifled so much creativity or why creatives have troubles. And I think as we look, we're going to see a really new, interesting wave of entrepreneurship moving forward. So I appreciate you sharing that kind of creative analogy with us because there's so many people out there that are also afraid of entrepreneurship because it is fucking hard and you have to do a lot of things. And so sometimes there's things where leverage what you do best and figure out who else can kind of join you in this journey. So I appreciate that. And I want to take kind of a step back a second, right? Because you said out of uni, your goal was to start a business, but the person you're going to co-found it with took a high-paying job, so you got into consultancy. Looking back and looking at your venture, the other ventures that you co-founded, do you think founding a company by yourself, or are you glad because the other company you co-founded was co-founded? Do you like having a co-founder? What do you think, because of your creative, your two-sided brain, do you think it was smart to grab a co-founder, or do you think there should just be one QB founder and an entrepreneurship?
Look, I think both have validity. Yeah? It depends often on the situation. So, at university, it was less serious. We pitched, we won a load of money, we got investors, but we didn't go that far. But hindsight, we didn't go that far down it. Yeah, he got offered a job by I think Virgin Atlantic as designer at 21. He was like, "I'm taking it." I was like, "Fair play." I get it. Yeah. So that wasn't so bad, And then again, in hindsight, I would have taken the idea and gone, "Well, I'm going to go with it anyway." But at the time, I didn't feel that was right. Now in Australia, I've actually had 3 businesses. The first one was a train wreck with a founder breakup, a proper we raised funds, we did everything, and then it just burnt down, and it was not a good situation. So I've been through that, and then when we turned that around, I led that on my own. So I've led the new businesses on my own. That said, I have a right hand man, Like my COO Grant is basically like the co-founder, yeah. So he's kind of like merged himself into that position. We didn't start that way, but he's kind of come there. So like I think where companies don't have an official co-founder, you will always find this second or maybe third person, yeah. So I think we inevitably need somebody to lean on. And, you know, it's like a marriage, yeah? Like you need one person at least that I think you could just divulge the whole lot to. You know, like I mean, like you go back in time, it seemed like, you know, like the whole co-founder thing was a thing, but you'd always find business partners working together, yeah? Like it was just a different name. And you still find solo founders, you still find them today. I think you need that person where when, you know, you have these highs and lows. I went through a period where it was just me and I shouldered everything and you protect your team and that's fine. But it's so much better being able to just say to someone, hey, look, shit's going to hit the fan. What do we do? And in fact, now our management team, we're very transparent with the whole management team. So I'm like, hey, management team, shit's going to hit the fan. What do we do? Yeah. So like the more open you are, the better. Look, I do think you do need to protect your team. Yeah. You have those moments when you're like, we're a week away from running out of money. You know, you hit these points. And, you know, again, there's a balance. But maybe as a broad brushstroke, one way to understand it is, I think when you first start having a co-founder is good because you're in it together. And when one of you's high, the chances are the other one might be a bit lower and vice versa. If you're feeling low, there's a good chance the other person is, you know, high. Again, it's a marriage, yeah? So that allows the stability and the energy to, you know, sit at an average that is of a good level. And I think pitching for investment, if you go down that route, you know, you don't have to. It's good to have two of you there. You know, like again, like my, you know, COO or my CTO will sit with me on pitches and be there to back us up. So you need that other person or other people, whether it's a co-founder or whether you know, because some people don't want to take that risk. You might want to just give someone a fat wage, hire them. But there's still that second person. That's fine. Again, different risk, different personality. So there's no rule. You will need somebody, whether it's co-founder or not. And the younger you are and the earlier you are in your career, I do think it's more beneficial as you get more senior. You can't like you're more experienced, yeah. So it's not maybe as important. You're on mute. There you are.
Back? Can you hear me? There you go.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting you say that because for me, I have two businesses, one that I own my own and one that I'm a co-founder in. And I think having coached 300 plus companies in the last 2 years, the thing that I notice is that both work depending on how you want to do it, but you're always going to find your second, right? And if you're going to come in it with a co-founder and you're going to come ideas together, there needs to be a clear delineation up front of who owns what. Versus having it where there's one founder and then you work that second kind of into that non-founding co-founder type of role that you lean on in that marriage process. But what I see a lot of things happen is, hey, let's start this business together. It's going to be amazing. We're going to fund this together. And then we go into it and there's not clear communication. There's not clear delineation of duties. We start fighting and it's a messy breakup because no one does anything. And it's a bad process. So I love kind of that broad brushstroke. Like you're always going to need someone to lean on as a founder, whether that's a co-founder from the beginning or somebody that works into your second. I think that's so smart. So if you don't mind asking, you know, you had this kind of horrible breakup with the first co-founder. Like what happened? Can you share a little bit about that piece of your past that led you, and also maybe a learning lesson or two?
Yeah. So we try to be a C play. So I wasn't from software. I was from industrial design. Yeah. So my assumption was always I'll go the hard product. Now moving to Australia. Australia is not an engineering like country, I wouldn't say. So doing product because of the small population at the time, you know, global delivery and supply wasn't what it is today. So now you can be a designer here, drop ship from China, it's fine. 10 years ago, not so easy. So I think it didn't have that infrastructure. So software starting to grow. You fall into it, it's still product design, yeah? It's actually just the same thing. So I actually met a co-founder through a date, went on a date, didn't hit it off that way, but started a business the next day. So I had this like wild ride, and it was awesome, and they were a front-end developer. One of the lessons here is with co-founders, and this is a good thing, you generally have like the builder and the salesperson, or the engineer and the sales product person, And again, like you tend to have like a good, difference in core skill sets. So we had that. We went out, we raised funds. That business didn't work out, and it was just because I had no idea of software. It was their first, kind of, or their kind of first like real software business. So like things are hard. Most of you fail. We failed. But then I think the stress got to that person a lot more than it did to me. I think I'm a very positive person. I'm very much the optimist. So I could write that pretty well. And I was like, look, it's okay. We'll change things and redo it. Whereas that person, I think, ultimately buckled under the stress. And it is stressful, and it wasn't fun, and it's not an enjoyable process. And this is where you see a lot of the make or break of, the entrepreneur, I think, is when stuff gets really hard, you need to stand up to it, And you need to, be the light for your team, and you need to forge through, and you need to find another way. Now that, if it's ongoing, can be very difficult, and it's not easy. It's common that happens. It's just not for everyone. It really isn't. Again, it's you need to. Generally, you find entrepreneurs are generally optimists for a reason, because you'll go through these hard periods, and mentally you need to come out the other side and be fine with it. And you speak to there's very few people who are pessimists in the entrepreneur space because it's not conducive. Co-founders might be a bit more pessimistic and a bit more realistic. My COO is way more down to earth than me, and that's a great thing. But like, again, it's a ride. You're gonna have failures. Like, the chances are you'll have failures. Look, it's one of the lessons, with the founding thing, which you hear about, and we tried to do, but we didn't do very well, is really get a good contract in place between co-founders. Yeah. So we had an okay one, but then when we broke up, it got messy and whatever else, and it didn't go well because there's emotions involved. Get that in place. Use someone who knows what they're talking about. Don't just use any old person. Like, use someone who's been through this in your industry, whatever that is. Get a good contract and just leave the egos on the table. It's like a prenup. It's not saying it's going to fail, but if it does, you want to protect both of you, and you might be the one that goes crazy, So it's protecting them as well. It's just. I mean, I don't think it's a bad thing because it toughens you up. It's a good learning curve. It's good understanding that not everyone is like you, because that's the optimist. You're like, we're all happy, we're all really good, it's going to be amazing, and then you're like, oh, that's just me.
Yeah. I appreciate you sharing, because that is something that I think a lot of people go through, and I agree, you need to be very clear up front with all those things. So I kind of want to transition into where you are today, right? So when we introduced you to the show, we talked about what started as a sales hack for an agency that you were running became the hack to the side hustle to global business. So talk about, one, what was that? What was the problem that you had that this hack came about from? Yep. And then let's talk about the rocket ship of the 18 months of just craziness that's happened for you.
Yeah, so we were running, so we were an agency with our own technology solutions. So we were a software agency. So we basically did qualitative research by mobile video. And this was, a few years ago. So it's pretty early in the space. So Mars, Kraft want to find out how mums, giving cheese to kids in 5 countries around the world. They would use that technology. They would basically send out questions. People would respond on video and then use that as qualitative research. So, but because you're dealing with large enterprise clients, it's very much an agency run. You run projects. Now, being in Australia, all those big clients are not in Australia. They are in London, Paris, New York. So we ultimately were selling, and we were flying over to London, Paris, New York on a regular basis. Now, what that means when you start to have an inbound funnel is that we're not awake when they're coming in, and so we start outbound, and then inbound starts to come in like inevitably. And so when you get back on email, because of time zones for us, it wasn't a great way of converting clients. We didn't really engage them, and being, a very creative team, like this personality and what we do is a massive part of how we sold, especially being creative in the research space, which was not a creative industry. it's a massive benefit. So we were like, how do we get this across? So I used to take a boat into the city to the office, where if you've ever been to Sydney, you can get ferries across the harbour. And so we built a hack that would basically dump me a list of all our inquiries overnight. We would use a data gatherer to basically gather information about this people. So like, what was their job title, which office were they in, which country, yada yada. I then use that data and I would do a video for every single person on my smartphone, as we call it at the time. And so I'd be on the front of this boat with like seagulls flying around my hair, and I'd say, hey James, saw you sign up for Mars in London. We've already worked with X country and X company. We do X, Y, Z. Look, I'm not in London. I'm in Sydney, but I'll be over in 2 weeks. Let me come in and see you. And so the first piece of comms I would ever get was this video. And it tripled our response rate. It tripled the business we won. It worked amazingly. And it wasn't what we said, because half the time they were like, I can't hear you. It's too windy. They're like, but this is hilarious. I heard something about London. Come in and see us. And so we really built this relationship. It really worked. And then we'd have these meetings. At the end of the meetings, people would go, oh, by the way, before you leave, what was that video email thing you used? Can we use that as well with our clients? And so over some beers and a weekend, we built this. We put them on. They used it. And then some of their customers were like, can we use this too? And we were like, okay, let's put a sign-up form. Let's put a paywall. And then it overtook the agency in like 18 months. And the agency still runs. We actually moved that office to the UK. So we're like, this global thing isn't easy enough. So that team now works at an office in London. And we're starting to merge some of that technology together because it has like a lot of synergies.
Yeah.
But essentially, we sat on it for 12 months. And then me and my CTO at the time decided to step into it full time. Mm-hmm. We stepped into it full time for 6 months, and then we raised some money and haven't looked back.
So I can only imagine getting like a video of you on a ferry in your bear costume. And I feel like you're the type of person that would do that no matter how people were looking at you, unless it was like, summertime, which they'd be like, why the fuck are you doing that? But, I love this power video, right? Everyone's talking about it now, and you were seeing this early, how to disrupt and break patterns. And so you're doing it as an agency, and all these things started happening, and it started tying all these loops together. That's crazy. And like, this is, for all those out there listening, like this is how cool shit happens. Listen to your customer, right? And one of the things that I think that you were doing and that did well is like, you were like, wait a second, all this is pointing back to this one thing, even though our service and product is over here. How do we integrate? And like, most people are just like, yeah, we're just doing this thing, but you're thinking so much about something else that you don't see the bigger picture. And like, that is just a cool way to step back. So when this all is happening and people start asking, you're building this, doing all these things, what was the impetus to really take the next step into launching it as the brand it is today? Because the agency was the agency named Bojoro originally, or was it something else? And then you launched a new business off of that. Like, how did that split come about, or how did the whole divination of this come to play?
Yeah, so the agency is called Verbate, and it's a completely different company. Yeah, so very similar technology, but it deals with enterprise clients, project-based work. 20K projects, again based in Europe. Whereas Bonjoro is an inbound funnel SaaS software subscription. Very different models in how they go to market, how they sell, and the brand. Like we're like a B2C brand in a B2B space. Think like a Mailchimp, like especially like in their younger years. Different brands, different selling, different things. So we had to split those. Look, I don't think starting a second business was easy. A lot of people say and this is true, don't do two things at once because you want to focus. So I don't sit on the Verbate product at all. I will help refer in, and we're there as a board and we advise, but we put a very different team in that with a different culture as well, which is what's needed. So it was never going to be a juggle. We took the jump. And my CTO, me, wanted a SaaS business. We're obviously both a bit obsessed with product, and we wanted this whole like funnel, like as a business model, it is wonderful. Look, agencies aren't bad, and you get big chunks of capital, yeah? So like cash flow, very positive. SaaS, you don't get that, but you build up over time. And so you have this wonderful model where you can predict, you can see your next 12 months ahead of the curve, yeah? Which is wonderful for planning out the business and how you're going to hire and where you're going to go. So I think we always wanted that. I think SaaS is a great way to, if you love product, to get into it. Because it's like how like all these little micro things that like you get obsessed about. How do we increase the viral factor? How do we increase conversions? It's this massive funnel. So we were excited about that, but we still sat on it for a year. So we didn't jump in. We literally hacked something together, let them use it, and I mean, one thing you learn through going through a few failures is that ideas are great. You want to have like how do you prove that idea is a business?
Yeah.
And for me, that's revenue. That's what it comes down to. Yeah, well, people pay, and I love B2B. So like I can't speak for the B2C space because that is a different game to play. Mm-hmm. And you might be going for active users over revenue, but in the B2B space, it comes down to revenue. Mm-hmm. So if people pay for it, and that means you're satisfying a big enough need. If multiple people pay for it, and then you can start to repeat that, and you can start to grow that revenue, then you understand you have something. And we start to do that on the side until it hit a point when the revenue is big enough that we were like, I think we like talked to a couple of funds, and we're like, we had this little thing, and they were like, yeah, that's super interesting. And they're like, those metrics are pretty effing good. You should go into this. And if you do it, come back in 6 months and we'll fund you. And we literally did that. Yeah, we had an investor. We came back in 6 months. We're like, yeah, we did this. And they're like, here's the money. Let's go.
I love it. There's so much to unpack there, but I love, like, my next question was going to be, right, if you launched two businesses and running, like, how the hell did you do that? And I think that you the way you answer that, like, it's amazing. Like, hey, we knew that if we were going to do this, we needed to pick it up and split it so that we can put another team in place to replace us to do the things that we need to get done that we don't want to do, and then run this thing. And I think so many of us have shiny object syndrome, right? It's like, I'll do this and this and this and this. And then we have everything on our plate, myself included. Anyone who's listening to this podcast knows that I try to take on way too much sometimes. And that actually negatively affects you. So I love that you're able to pick that up, kind of going back to that creative brain versus engineering brain, and just be able to say, sometimes you got to split and go. And then when you go, you grow, which I think is super interesting. When you were making that split happen, and, obviously people are saying it's interesting, come back in 6 months, all this stuff. When you made the split to go build Bojoro and really make this happen, what was the biggest challenge that you faced in kind of that diverging of the woods, and setting up the entity Verbate as it is, and being able to say, I can step away from that to do this? What challenges were there?
Yeah, I mean, telling the team. We were like, so we're gonna leave this thing and go and build this other thing. And everyone's like, what? And everyone's like, but we've got this product timeline, and so we couldn't build products on 2 at once. So we actually left the agency as a bit of an orphan for a while, yeah. And we left it as an orphan and we're like, it's probably we'll probably just like wind it down because the opportunity is much bigger and we can't focus on two things. And then when we left it, it kept going up, and we're like, I mean, I like money, so like, so it wasn't like immediately we were like, let's put two teams in place. We kind of like left it. We were like, I think there's a big opportunity here. We're gonna leave some people on that, but put more resources here. Mm-hmm. And obviously, as CTO and the CEO, everyone understands your focus has just shifted massively. So they just left on the other business. They're like, well, if you guys aren't on it, what's the point? But then that business continued to grow with like no focus. Like we didn't focus on it, and we're like, just like calm down and die, and it kept getting bigger, and we're like, okay, so now we'd have to somehow put two things in place, and then that became a separate problem, and a good one. After I think if it hadn't happened, we would have cut it off and left it, because that was ultimately the bottom line.
Yeah.
But now we have two businesses that do good revenue in different areas, and that's fine too, because again, we like money. Yeah. There's no reason to kill it off. But I think, so that stage of saying to the team, we're going to move on to this. There's there's a confidence challenge, yeah? Mm-hmm. And they look at the numbers and they're like, but Bonjoro doesn't make nearly enough money as this one. And we're like, Yeah, but it will do. You have to trust us here.
Yeah. I love that. I mean, I think that's a big fucking decision too. Like, you know, I mean, originally thinking that, well, we may just let this thing like end eventually because there's a big opportunity here. And it could have happened where this other thing didn't take off and this, you know, verbate kind of fell off. And then you're sitting with two failed things. And you're like, what did I just do? I mean, that's a lot of like, but the thing is, and what I think that makes it really interesting is that there's passion and confidence in it, right? You knew as a product guy, you wanted to build product, SaaS, and that was something that was really passionate for you at some point in your life. And this was your opportunity to do that. You believed in the power of it. You've already seen it. And at some point, and again, this didn't happen overnight. And I think one of the things that I love debunking and talking about is that most of the time you hear it's like, there's one major challenge, that one shining moment, and then everything fucking just works. It's like, no. This motherfucker just waited, sat on it for 12 months, then had to go through the whole, you know, scariness of saying, hey, we're going to go do this other thing, and have a group of people who put time, energy, and effort being in driving in revenue who were probably scared that maybe they were going to lose their job soon and figuring out, well, I don't want to work for somebody else, to building something from scratch, to launching and hoping everything worked out, that both things would run super well. Like, that took time and probably a lot of sleepless nights, which for those that don't know, this man got up way early to do this because he has teams on 5 continents and he's a morning dude. So tell me a little bit about, you know, as you've gone through this process and you scaled quickly, you're now running teams in 5 different locations. How are you managing it? Like, tell me a little bit about what is the day in the life of Matt Barnett look.
Yeah, so I think we're actually up to seven countries since I sent you that email. It's just taking someone in another country. So, like, it's so like, basically speaking, like what we've done, we focused our product team down on Asia Pacific. So product is now here because we tried the product in like the States and stuff. But I think my interpretation, and there's different models here, but what works for us is having departmental teams with some good crossover of time zone, because I think you have to nut challenges out. It's really good to work on the same time zone, but it's like for us, I go to market is there for Europe and the States, which are not perfect, but they have to cross over. But then our customer base is, like we're founded in Sydney. 95% of our customers are not in Australia.
Yeah,
that's part of the bias for us as well. If all our customers were in Australia, I think we would probably done things a bit different.
Yeah.
But our go-to-market team is where our customers are. So they need to be on customer time zones. They have good overlap. Product team doesn't need to be on the customer's time zone as much. There is always crossover, because I'll be like it's, let's say, early morning here. I'm not the only one of our team up early, and it's afternoon your side, and you're the worst time zone for us. West Coast of States is much better.
Yeah.
So there's a balance there. It's not like you have like strict lines, but I take the early mornings. I will do evenings, but then all of our team have that mindset. Like, I was on a call last night with my CMO, like at 8 p.m. here, 11 a.m. his side. But then sometimes he'll do like midnight calls, with our board.
Yeah.
And so everyone kind of chips in together. Everyone's okay with time zones. We do a monthly all hands. And it's just hit the point where I'm like, I don't think we can do it anymore, because the time zones, it's normally like somebody always has a glass of wine or a beer. Someone's always got coffee. And now it's got to the point where like someone's always fast asleep. So there's always going to be someone that misses out. So how we go from here, we're not sure. Do you have to split up, or do we just say 1 month you could join, 1 month you could join? It's not about us as a founding team. It's about the team as a whole. So we try and get most team on those calls. Look, the challenge, I can talk for hours about how do you run a remote team around the world. There are massive benefits and there's massive challenges. I don't know if it's any better than having all your team in one office. It's just a different model that satisfies, with our business, the way we are and the way that we were founded in Australia. We're not here now. I look at it, I'm like, it's inevitably the best model.
Yeah. And I think, everyone wants to say it's either got to be this or that, all remote or all in office. It's like, do whatever the fuck is best for your business. What is your business? what is your model, what do you need done, and where are your customers? And based on those things, you build your team in fluidity to what works best for the group, the whole. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be one or the other. And I love that that's kind of this, this team motto. You could tell through the conversation and through the growth of it and looking at how this is built that there's fluidity at all times. And that fluidity of the team first mentality allows for, it's a big piece of why the growth happens, right? When your team is bought in from a fluid standpoint of these different hours and teams everywhere, and they're willing to put in the work and do the things because they have fun, and they love it, and there's passion, like they feel impactful, therefore make an impact, therefore the company can make an impact. And that starts with how you treat your employees, which
it's number one. Yeah. Like the bigger you get, the more you realize this. When you start, you find a bunch of like-minded people and off you go. And this is like serendipity. Yeah? Like you just attract these people and then off you go. And that's how you start and get successful. The bigger you get, you look back, you're like, that was quite rare. Find that group of people with that set of skills. And as you get bigger, it all comes down to team. It's not product. It's not business model, because all of that without the right team falls over. So, and it becomes more important because as you get bigger, that culture will start to get pulled apart because, three people have a culture. Like you guys are the culture is formed by those three people. Yeah. Whatever the personalities are melded up, and then you have a culture that comes out and a set of values. When you get to 30 people, you've suddenly got way more brain types, and you're hiring different types of people. You're not hiring, the first 10 hacking, rebels. You're now hiring people in specialist jobs who are career people, but you need them. And so it gets more difficult, but also more important as you get bigger. And, big companies fall over because they have fundamentally mocked up team.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the topics I love talking about is future of work and building teams, and everyone's like, oh, they want to take a hard line, and because everyone is always like this or that, and it's like, no, there is a lot of shades of gray that you could play into, and there's so many factors, and so I love that that's kind of the way you're taking this and the way you approach this. So, one, I love that, I love the tagline. Don't just say hello, say Bonjoro. That to me is just, it's like, it makes me smile just saying it. When you came up, because I have, and I've told my story of the bear logo, where it came from the How did the bear logo, this bear mentality come out with the Bonjoro name? Where did all this come from when you built this? How did the name and the logo, where did it all come from in building the company? Look, probably I love product, but I also love brand. I'm probably a natural brand individual. In my days in London, I was in London for 10 years. I'd wear a kilt 9 days out of 10, just because it was great. I would do, I love getting on stage. I love that brand piece. And so all my companies are can't go brand first. So with this one, given, the year building up to it, we knew it was very personal business. It was pretty fun. It's not that serious. I'm not that serious. My team aren't that serious. We like to joke around, comedy's at the heart of what we do, so this felt natural. The actual bear itself, I'm pretty sure came up over beers. One of the team was what should we be? And one of the team just pulled a picture of a bear lying down, chilling out. And he's like, how about that? That was it. It was a bear waving. And we're and that's literally our logo today, was just the picture of a bear waving. So I think that's where that came from. The word Bonjoro, I guess kind of Bonjoro bear. The Bonjoro word came from these connotations to hello and, welcome. And with building a brand, I love making up words with connotations. Mm-hmm. So I think a good way to do it is you make a new word, because then that could be whatever you want it to be. You could build what that word, it's like Googling, today we Google. Yeah. That's the ultimate thing is when you do the brand. So you can build it around, but you want to have a connotation to what you do, yeah? So verbate is ad verbatim videos, and research, whereas Bonjoro is, hello and buongiorno and bonjour, and it kind of feeds in there. So you have this, but it's a new name, and that also means you can get a website. You can get www.com, which is part of this too. The bear, I look back now and I'm it was kind of inevitable anyway.
but it again, like I think a company that's done amazing things here is MailChimp. You know, you look back, the stories that are different. Yeah, MailChimp were an agency, and they were doing a thing because they saw a problem and they launched a product. You know, I mean, they are absolute heroes. They bootstrapped to whatever it is, like $7 billion. And they've had this B2C like attitude in a B2B place, and it's fun and it's delightful, and that's a big part of their success. And I mean, like, if we get to be a fraction of what they are, I'll be very happy.
That's amazing, and I love it. It's, you know, it's an app for sending individual personalized photos to welcome it on board. Like, it's to say hello, it's to have fun, and it's to make that rapport. And so I love that that's from the very core piece of the brand. And I know we're getting to the end of time here, so before we get to the final questions of the show, I have one more question as it relates to the company, right? As a multiple-time founder coming through, you talked about your story, you talked about your product guy, all these things that mean things to you, and why this came out. But at the heart of it, you used the word value in there at one point. Like, what is Bonjoro? What are the values of Bonjoro? What was the core culture value, you know, building blocks that you said, when we create this company, we build it, we want these things to be our core? What are those core values or core pillars?
Yeah, I think we addressed this quite early, but again, we didn't say these are the values we'll go for. We had these values, and then we can't recognize them in who we're hiring. So, like, creativity, absolutely. I mean, friends and family first, yeah, is the other piece. So, like, health, friends, family. Like today, like, what my new team is like, can I come into work? Can I start work early today and finish early? So I've got to go. And I'm like, you don't need to ask me. He's like, I'm so used to asking at my last job. I'm like, you don't need to ask me. Just tell us what it is you're doing. If you want to have a day off because of family, just tell us you're taking a day off. Like, don't ask. Like, it's not the point. We have this weird concept of, so I call it honor. I think there's maybe too strong a word, but it's basically doing the right thing. Like, there's a gray line you can walk in business. Mm-hmm. We don't walk that line. We don't stray into the gray area. We like to stay in the white area. I think every entrepreneur will come across this. Yeah, as you build, there are things you can do that aren't bad, but they're not good either. I don't think you need to do them to build a business. Yeah, and I think when you have that and you stick to it, you know, your team know it's always a no. They don't question it. Your customers know it's a no. You do the right thing. If somebody wants a refund, they haven't used it, give them it back. Don't question it. You know, if team are like, oh, we can get this list, don't do it unless you have permission. Like, it's absolutely cool. So like those are our core three, and we have a few others on the sideline, but those three like drive us. Is like creativity, don't walk the line, you know, and then friends and family first. And that seems to be the bit that really matters out of all the values we have.
Yeah, I love that. And, you know, it kind of comes back to all these things we talk about, having fun, being able to have fun with what you do, have fun with the way you work, have fun with the product you're building, have fun using your product. I'm a big proponent and love videos and send videos for everything. Thank you. Hey, just check it. You know, I love leveraging, you know, having fun and using that personality. So I think that's a great kind of core to build around, and also kind of showing up in a bear costume at, you know, way too early, you know, local time for you with a cup of coffee. And I appreciate that. So, you know, Matt, there's a few questions I always like to ask my guests. And the first one is, you know, when we look at future entrepreneurs, those that are thinking about taking the step into the world of entrepreneurship, whether that's, you know, a senior executive, a millennial, or a Gen Zer that wants to get into entrepreneurship, what would you, what advice would you give them?
I mean, honestly, so can I give two? I'd say so. Number one, don't give up. Yeah, like you'll get knockbacks. It's a learning process. Yeah, doesn't matter what your industry is. It's a whole new journey. Just keep going. Secondly, build a support network. I mean, that can multiple areas. It can come from, you know, advisors, probably not family and friends. I almost leave that alone. But other founders, very importantly, go find a bunch of people like you because when you have your setbacks, they're all like, yeah, we've had 3 of those. When you have found a breakup, you come to me, I'm like, yeah, this is what happened with us. I've heard much worse stories. Yeah. So, and then you can shrug it off, laugh, and move on. Get that support network, get other founders, get advisors, and just don't give up. It's a journey. It's not about a destination.
I absolutely love that. I talk a lot about having a personal board of advisors when I started my businesses, and having others that are in solopreneurship, have small teams, have done these things. And they're people that I could call and sometimes just be in an ear, like, hey, I just need to get this off my chest, or I need advice, or I need you to just kick me in the ass back into gear and say, Rob, stop being a dumbass and go do this thing. And I love that advice. Start that early. Right? Create your network. I talk about it all the time. Value added network. Create your network early. So I love that. What is one book, resource, show, piece of content that everyone should be reading right now?
So I like, from the broad perspective, The Hard Thing About Hard Things. As a book. Have a read. I love it because it's just like you read that and you're like, okay, our journey's easy. Yeah? Like, it's a pretty brutal story.
It is.
Again, like, it has its biases, but like you read that and I'm like, that's as hard as it can get. It's fine. Go again. I mean, everyone will enjoy it. Yeah. Yeah.
The hard thing about hard things, I think, is just, it's one of those books I think everyone that wants to think about entrepreneurship should do, because 1, you learn a lot, and 2, you're just like, wow, like, yeah, I could do almost anything, So I love that.
Yeah.
One of my favorite questions is, what is your superpower?
Yeah, so bear hugs, obviously, and then product, probably, like as a creative design-led founder. It's not the most common founding thing. I think it's great. I love it. But yeah, that's it.
Love it. Giving bear hugs and playing around with product. And so before I ask for your lasting kind of message, there's a fun fact that people don't know about you that you did, which was. Which I cannot imagine you. Actually, I could. In fact, I want you to send me a video of you in your bear costume on a unicycle, please. So this man unicycled, was it 100 miles in a day for kilometers?
100 kilometers, like 70 miles. Yeah.
70 miles in a day for charity. So what were you doing that for, and why? And how do you do that on a unicycle?
I'm a weird dude. I mean, that's just, I like weird stuff. I couldn't go to the toilet for like 2 weeks afterwards. It's a lot of pressure on your urethra at that area. Raising money, I like doing weird stuff. I wouldn't do it again, but it was great.
Wouldn't do it again, but it was great. I mean, have you you just normally unicycle? Is that's something that you just love to do always, or how did the unicycle thing come?
I've lived a few lives. Let's just put it that way. I wasn't always in a bear seat. I've done a few weird things. I get. I mean, you'll find this with good entrepreneurs are obsessive. This is one thing that's a good trait. Yeah, and I'm a classic obsessive where I'll get a new hobby and rather than just I won't ever touch anything lightly. I'll go 100% in for a couple of years. And so I went to juggling conventions in New York when I was 16, did all this stuff, and then after that, I was like, right, now I'm going to go and do art. And then do that obsessively for a while, do 100 exhibitions in 2 years. Then I'm like, right, what's next? Let's go surf and then let's do business. And so you have these obsessive things we get through. I don't spend my days on a unicycle today. When my kids grow up, I'm going to be like, hey, this is how you juggle 5 clubs and whatever else. And they'll be like, what?
Man, I love it. I love it. And I personally get the obsessive personality and live many lives. And so I love that you have those. And I feel the next time that, when we finally you come to New York, which you're going to, and we go out for beers, I'm going to have to peel back the layers of those multiple lives. So it would be a fun night. So what do you think? What is your lasting message and key takeaway for those out there listening in Bear Nation?
Yeah, so I'm going to be cheesy and steal one from the company, but we have an ethos. I think it's really good, which is automate processes but never relationships. And so I think when you look to grow your business, automate all the stuff that you as a founder don't need to be doing. Yeah, automate your accounting, automate your operate, all that stuff. Yeah, but focus on the stuff that you as a human can only do. And so talk to your customers, talk to your investors, talk to your team, build relationships. Again, I said the most important thing is team, absolutely, but then customers, same thing. Your advisors and your backers, same thing, yeah? Like build these relationships and really, really work at them, because only you could do that. If you have awesome relationships, when shit gets hard, they'll help you and they'll back you. When you're looking for your next product idea, your customers will tell you what it is, yeah? So all the answers are already there. So again, automate your processes, but, never your relationships.
I love that as the ethos of the company, and such great lasting advice, and I absolutely love it. So how can Bear Nation find the Papa Bear? Where do they go? Where should they be searching? Where should they be looking to connect with you after the show? Yeah,
so if you head to LinkedIn, type in Papa Bear. I think there's 3 of us. I'm the one in the bear suit. So just reach out. Like most people don't, like hit me up. If you want any advice, I reached out to so many people in the early days. Just hit me up cold. I will respond.
Awesome. So we'll make sure to also link that in the show notes so you can find him easily. Find that beautiful bear suit. Connect with Matt. Check him out. Check out what they're doing. The companies look really cool, obviously, and there's a great ethos to it. So just check it out and let us know what you think. Matt, I appreciate you for being here up early, bringing the energy and coffee. And sharing your story with me and sharing your story with Bear Nation. So I appreciate you. Thank you so much for rocking the bear suit. Everyone listening, I promise you it's worth your while to head on over to the YouTube channel to just see this gloriousness and with your eyes and not just think about it. So Bear Nation, until next time, stay well. Matt, thank you so much, my friend.
Thanks, Rob.
Bear Nation, once again, thank you for listening to the Bare Necessities of Entrepreneurship. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave us a review. And until next time, take care.